Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I'm your host, Keith Malinak. Now available on YouTube when you head to youtube.com/atthemicwithkeith. That's youtube.com/atthemicwithkeith. This week I sit down with my friend Ian Patterson. His life story is next. The latest offering from the great folks at American Pride Roasters Coffee is a blend named after the one and only Thomas Paine, a true hero of the American Revolution. Did you know that Thomas Paine almost never made it to America to begin with? He survived a nasty transatlantic voyage where 5 passengers died of typhoid fever after the ship's water supplies were dangerously bad. His friend Benjamin Franklin, perhaps you've heard of him, he had to physically carry Paine off the ship because he was so sick upon his arrival in America. Well, after a 6-week recovery, Paine was ready to help the American cause for freedom as the editor of the Pennsylvania magazine. Well, if you believe as Thomas Paine did when he said, "We have it in our power to begin the world over again," well, then begin your journey with the Thomas Paine blend from APR Coffee. It features 100% dark roasted Robusta beans, and like its namesake, Dave Matthews over at APR feels the Age of Reason blend is too strong and borders on dangerous. I just love that. If you want a wildly strong cup and you don't fear losing your soul, click the Age of Reason option at AmericanPrideRoastersCoffee.com. Use promo code ATM at checkout for 10% off. That's APRCoffee.com.
You're listening to At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production.
Ian Patterson is a hero. I'm looking forward to introducing you to him on this week's episode. Oh, and by the way, he has a very weird injury that rivals many of my own, so be listening for that one. Let's get this week's At the Mic conversation started right now with Ian Patterson. Ian, what's up, man?
Not much, man. Thanks for having me. Great to be in here with you.
Okay, so
it's been a while.
It has been. We've been trying to make this happen, and something comes up. You know, it's just the way of the world. It's just busy lives, man. So I appreciate you making time and coming all the way over here because I caught you in between business trips. Like literally, the one day you have, you give it to me, man. God bless you, man. I'm sorry to drag you away from the family on the only time you got.
No, it's fine, man. It's fine. Like you said, we've been trying to do this for months now, and I just bit the bullet. I've seen the family all day. I'll see the family all night. So right. It's good to be here with you.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You were born, and by the way I came to know who you were was through your efforts with Operation Pineapple in Afghanistan.
That's correct. Taskforce Pineapple.
My gosh, man. Can we will talk about that because that is amazing what you guys did over there. But you and I have been corresponding and we met up, and had a chat once. And so I thought, this guy, I got to get him behind a microphone and let's talk about his life. So you were born in Detroit, Michigan.
Yep, lived there. Was very young when I left and moved and lived in a small town up in northern Michigan, up on Lake Huron of about 300 people, small town called Harrisville.
Oh, it sounds beautiful, dude.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And as far as growing up, it was the best way that I can describe growing up. No worries, didn't have to worry about what you have to worry about as a parent today, people snatching your kids and we were kind of free-range kids, so to speak. And, old school Midwest.
Yeah.
Depending on which house you lived in from your friends, if you got in trouble, you took a butt whooping from each parent all the way, all the way to your house.
Oh, no. So what's it like there today? Because so many places where people, my hometown of Marietta, Georgia included, have changed, not necessarily for the better since our childhood. How about Harrisville? How's that?
Harrisville's Harrisville. I got a few friends left there that I still keep in touch with. From what I understand, I've not been back since 1998.
Okay.
But from what I understand, it's very depressed. It's the poorest county in the state of Michigan. And, for its pure beauty and the lake and the forest, there's not much else there. It's more family money, and that's about it. And the occasional tourist money, the 2 to 3 months of summer they get a year.
I gotcha. So how old were you when you moved to Destin, Florida?
I was 13.
vastly different worlds.
Vastly going
I
from...
can't think of a difference more extreme than those two places.
No, going from basically southern Canada to the deep south, for lack of better words, is it was a culture shock.
So, which did you enjoy more?
In my younger years, I really enjoyed Michigan, and when you've known people since you were born until 13, it was a tough transition. My older years, as I look back, Florida was a far better opportunity and a far better life than what I could have had in Michigan. So it's a touch point. The hunting and fishing I miss in Michigan, but then again, the warm weather and the deep sea fishing in Florida, it's just, you can't compare it.
Right. You're an only child like myself. Do you wish that you had siblings? Because I sure do.
I don't. And I say that, and I strictly say that because of how I grew up in such a rural area. All of my friends were like family anyway. I mean, there's a guy here in the Dallas area who I've known since I was 2 years old. And, we grew up like family. In such a small town, there's really no other way.
Oh, that's cool. You had mentioned hunting earlier in the conversation. I love your earliest memory is your mom shooting a deer from the bathroom window. You got to set this scene for us, man.
So 3 or 4 years old, and deer season in Michigan's short, 2 weeks long, I believe, at the time.
Wow.
Talking 1980, 1981.
Wow.
And you're allowed one deer, and you're lucky to get the one deer. And all of a sudden, I hear the bathroom window slide open, and I'm just waking up, and I hear the whip snap of that rifle go off. And next thing you know, my mom's putting me in snow gear, and we're going outside to dress the deer.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. One shot knocked it down, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, cool. It was feet, not yards. It was feet away from where she pulled the trigger.
Okay.
I mean, there was no chance that deer was getting out of there.
All right. So, I mean, they're rodents, right? I mean, that's effectively what they are, right?
Exactly.
I mean, so they're pests, man. They destroy stuff. So people that have this, because I love animals, but my gosh, there is a line, and the deer are on the shoot to kill side of that line.
Yeah, agreed. And unfortunately, the Midwest and some other states have so heavily restricted the populations that now they're dying off with the, it's a neurological disease, chronic wasting. And it's now making its way from the white-tailed deer into the mule deer in the mountains and into the elk, and it's really affecting kind of the natural cycle. So hopefully we see a bit more turn towards the management of it than just the big game portion of it.
So lived the first half of your childhood in Michigan, moved to Florida. Explain to us, take us on your college tour, how you ended up at the University of Missouri, then you went out to Colorado, and then eventually here in Texas.
I've been all over. So college, I went to the University of Missouri to play football.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What position?
I was a safety.
All right, man.
I went as a tall, skinny tight end, and then they moved me to wide receiver, and then realized I like to hit people and moved me to safety.
So wait a minute, because you're a large guy, and I mean that in a sense of muscular, okay? You don't, to me, just at first glance, make me think safety. I thought you were going to say linebacker or fullback or something. I don't know. Am I wrong?
Yeah. So at 18, I was 175 pounds soaking wet.
Right.
And didn't really put on weight till I was 19, 20. So.
Okay.
And by the time I finished playing, I was more in a linebacker kind of hybrid, kind of strong safety spot.
Okay.
But early on, I mean, I was just tall, skinny, and fast. And
then you hit the weight room.
Yeah.
A lot, I'll say.
Yep. And then really turned my focus back to rugby, which kind of put me in a bigger position as well.
Oh, my gosh. We got so much to talk about. So you went to Missouri to play football. What were you studying at the time?
Yeah. Started as pre-law, almost failed out my first year.
Oh, my.
Decided I didn't like to read that much, and it wasn't where I wanted to go, and ended up in meteorological studies. So I was a weatherman.
What?
Yeah.
I love this.
Yep.
It's like, okay, now I got to start writing stuff down. I'm going to start forgetting all the questions I have for you. So wait a minute. Did you end up majoring in meteorology then?
I did.
And did you go on to be a weatherman?
I did, in a way. So, it wasn't what I was planning on doing. I ended up going back to grad school in Australia, studied tourism marketing and management, and September 11th rolled around. I was in Australia going to school and walked into the U.S. Embassy on September 12th and signed up for the military.
That's how you...
And ended up being combat weather for the Air Force.
Oh, wow.
So that was my professional experience in meteorology and weather.
Oh, my. Okay. So we skipped through because I just kind of dragged you into the future here. You went to... Where is University of Ballarat?
Ballarat? Yeah, Ballarat's in Ballarat, Victoria, Australia.
Oh, that's... Okay, so that's where you were there.
About an hour and a half north of Melbourne.
Now I got you. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Very good. So yeah, I didn't actually drag you too far in the future there. That worked out nicely. Okay, so you're now in the armed forces. Mm-hmm. And where are you traveling now with them? So
my two main locations, I was stationed just down the road from here in Shreveport, Louisiana, for all my training, and then ended up in Lakenheath, England.
Wow.
Attached to a big F-15 unit there, and then went up to Iceland for a little bit to bring a helicopter, SF helicopter unit down from Keflavik down to Lakenheath. They were closing a unit up there and moving it down to Lakenheath, and basically supported the helicopters in England, and spent the majority of my time in the UK minus deployments. So, and a few NASA assignments in France and Spain, but I spent almost my whole time in Europe.
Where were your deployments? Where did those take you?
I did Qatar, I did Iraq, and did Afghanistan.
So I just don't know your story well enough to just assume here. Were you then doing weather stuff?
I was.
Okay. So
I was.
Is there with computers and models and stuff, were you ever like, why do I need to actually go to where the action is to do the weather? So
you have a lot of different ways that you can look at it. So there's kind of three different phases. There used to be three different phases in weather. There's two now. You have your standard Air Force weather, which is, the best way to look at it is from surface to 50,000 feet. Okay. And you can do that from a computer, and you can forecast, standoff distances for the jets, for the aircraft. You can do bombing forecast, flight weather forecast, pretty much 100% from the computer. Okay. You'll get feedback from the jets and things like that, so you can adjust. Then you have your combat weather, which is basically surface to 500 feet. And in a lot of cases, you need to be on the ground and in the arena for that. With that, we also had special operations, weather and tactics, which would be attached to the Green Berets and different ODA groups, a Ranger Battalion. And you're on the ground, you're in with a team, you are forward as forward can be. I mean, a couple of prime examples that most folks don't know about. One of the guys wounded from Black Hawk Down in Somalia was an Air Force weather guy.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty integral, everything is based around weather.
Right.
You do riverine forecast if you got tanks and things like that. The ground gets too soft, you'll sink a tank and get a tank stuck. You get a tank stuck, you're in trouble. Helicopter aviation, jump aviation, they want to know the levels, the winds through the levels, same with bombing. It touches every piece of military operations almost.
I bet it does. That's fascinating, dude. So I realize that your experiences over there, it's impossible for you to encapsulate them to someone like me, all the stuff you went through. But if you had to sum up describing what it was like over there in just, a brief conversation like this, I mean, what is your takeaway? Because my follow-up to that would be, at what point did you look and see what was happening more recently and say, oh my gosh, I've got to get involved?
It's kind of, and it depends on the front, right? Iraq was total chaos, followed by total chaos, and continued in chaos. The Iraqis and that portion of the world through history, if you look at history, he who wields the biggest sword is in control. Mm-hmm. And that's their mentality. Sadly, our form of government and freedom isn't for everybody. On the other side in Afghanistan, it was total chaos and utter peace. And what I mean by that is I was located mostly in the Northeast, Korangal Valley, Pesh River Valley, Kamdesh, Jalalabad, some pretty heavy fighting. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, I would get stuck out into some areas that were the most peaceful places on earth, on mountain ranges, by lakes, rivers that, and I tell people this every day who ask me about it. If I could ever go back and it was stable to travel like it was in the 70s, I'd buy the first ticket.
Wow.
Because it's that beautiful and that amazing of a country. And the people just want peace. They just want to be left alone. Mm-hmm. There's tribes that we encountered didn't even really know who we were or where we were from. They are that isolated and remote from reality. It was pre-medieval times, how far they were still living behind the bell curve. But they were happy living on their side of the mountain.
Technology,
everything,
all that stuff, communication. Yeah.
They had none of it. They lived on their side of the mountain, and that's where they stayed.
There just seems like just sitting here amidst the chaos of a first world nation such as the United States here in 2022. The way you describe that, I mean, there is a certain draw for me just sitting here thinking, man, that's how I want to live, but I couldn't handle it for more than 5 minutes, obviously, but still there's that attraction for sure.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, a lot of these places, the only place that had electricity was a mosque, and the only ones who could read were the leaders of the mosques.
It does sound like pre-medieval times. Yeah.
I mean, that was it. Huh. So it was very interesting. And, I respect my time there. Mm-hmm. We fought a good fight. We were there for the right reasons. Yeah. As all wars, they get political and get out of hand. And that one just kept going and going and going down the rabbit hole further and further and further.
Sure. So you come back to the States. How long after your time over there, how much longer did you serve?
I spent my whole time overseas. So my nearly 10 years, I was overseas.
Okay.
And when I moved back to the U.S., I was out.
Okay.
So I separated from a base on foreign soil. And when I came back to the U.S., I was fully out.
Oh, wow. Good. Yep. Okay. So when did you end up at Colorado Tech? Was that after Afghanistan?
So while I was in randomly, I was actually doing a degree while I was in Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny.
They let you do that, huh?
Well, it was all online. Uh-huh. And when there's utter chaos, and like I said, utter chaos and total peace, when there's total peace, there's nothing else to do. So
how's the internet connection for distance learning?
I mean, it was
Afghanistan.
It was fine at the bases, and I had satellite, so we could just ping right in, and it was exponentially different than it was now. It wasn't Zooms, it wasn't it was a recording you listened to, but it was it worked. It worked enough.
Yeah.
So
what got you to Baylor then?
That was
that in person or was that online?
I do both. I do both. I'm still finishing up at Baylor.
Oh, okay.
I had no intention to go back to school. I was done. It used to be a program that you could give your family your benefits. And when I tried to give my wife, we've only been married a couple of years, my benefit, they said, well, you had to declare this when you were getting out and separating from the military. So I had all this additional VA benefit to use. So I said, well, let's find the best school I can get into and have a whack at it. And, Baylor ranks in top 20 pretty much across the country in business school. And, it's close. It's got a great track record of education. And
so correct me if I'm wrong, but just taking a step back, I would think just what I know about you is that you enjoy travel and you enjoy learning.
I do.
Is that fair?
I do.
Okay.
But on the same side, I hate school.
Right. Okay. Then explain what it is you do now.
So I've been, kind of long story short, I've been in hospitality for the better half since I've been out of the military, and just decided, this last trip out of town that I'm done working in corporate America and I'm going to spin up my own hospitality organization.
Good for you, man.
It's, I know the ins and outs of it. I've seen the pitfalls. I've made a lot of people a lot of money in the past. And it's just time. I see some things that aren't changing in the industry that need to be changed, and
you're the guy to do it.
I feel it's time to jump in and do it.
I like it. So then I don't want to use the word abandoned, but I can't think of a better word here. Have you completely abandoned the world of meteorology that you originally majored in?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. The day I left the military is the last time I looked at the weather for the most part. I'll have people call me and ask me what I think, and I'm like, I to be honest, I don't even look at it anymore.
Yeah.
I probably forgotten more than I learned.
Yeah, right. So take us to the heroic work you did with Afghanistan as the chaos unfolded late last summer.
That was interesting. Had no intention of getting involved. I had kept some relationships in Afghanistan. A lot of people don't realize, we're there to fight a war, but you become very close with a lot of the locals. And they become family to you, you become family to them. And kept in touch with a handful of guys. And I got involved. I reached back to this story. We had 3 brothers who cut our hair in Jalalabad, and for $1. And you got a haircut, a shave, and a back massage where they beat you to death for $1.
Wow.
And these 3 brothers, I think they range from like 16 to 21 in age. And it was funny, if you didn't tip them at least $10 or $20, a guy would follow you out and you get roughed up by a couple of the other soldiers who are on the fob.
Americans.
But, yeah. Because there was a couple that you took care of. And I had tried to reach out to another contact that I had. I couldn't get a hold of him, but I had heard through the grapevine that the 3 brothers were learned to have been employees for the U.S. Air Base and were pulled out in front of their family and hung. And that's when I started to jump in and get really involved. Yeah. Picked up a couple of translators that we had over there who were trying to get out. Started working with a Canadian guy whose uncle, and I'm still working this one to this day, and these are just my personal stories, obviously Taskforce Pineapple on a whole was much bigger, who ran the rule development for Afghanistan in the UN, Afghani national, but really got involved with Taskforce Pineapple through a buddy of mine, Zach, who was a former Green Beret, who worked with Scott Mann, but was the mastermind of getting the guys. Scott Mann had the idea. Zach was the mastermind behind how to get the guys out and how to get them onto the airfield and get them onto a jet to get them out. What started with one person. They were trying to get one high value target out, turned into thousands. Taskforce Pineapple has changed their direction now. We've kind of turned it into Operation Recovery, which I'm on the board of directors for now. And Op Recovery is taking on the humanitarian and the humanitarian aid that's going in and still trying to get people out. Kind of a good segue is we are also, our board just approved funding to go to kind of Poland, Romania, and Moldova. They're on the Ukrainian border for medical supplies and to set up medical facilities for the Ukrainians coming out. We will not send money into Ukraine because of the corruption and not knowing where the money's going. But as long as we can get the money to where we need it and send over supplies and get them to the medical facilities, that's what we're going to do to kind of help this new front out.
It would seem like, and I apologize for being naive here, but it would seem like with something like helping out with Ukrainians and using European countries as kind of a base of operations, that would seem much more, I guess, feasible for an individual with your group to actually be on the ground there helping out in person. Does that sound right? Okay. So with the Afghanistan situation and Taskforce Pineapple, I'm just trying to imagine, were you guys doing all of this stuff long distance, almost flying blind, or did you have people, or I guess Americans, did anybody go over there? And I just can't imagine trying to run such a large-scale rescue operation from the other side of the world.
We did it all from here.
Unreal.
And the way we were able to do it was with our connections over a 20-year war. And, everybody says relationships. And it was 20 years of relationships that were built between different people, different organizations. I kind of got pulled into it. Yeah, I was helping a few people, but I was a guy who knew a guy.
Yeah.
And could connect. I could pull money in. I could connect people to the right people. I'm the guy who knows a guy type thing. And that's really how we did it. And a lot of it, I tell you, it was surreal and it was movie-like. Taliban rolls in, takes over. Biden says we're done, we're leaving everybody, and we're out. Well, there's no support at that point.
Mm-hmm.
We were getting money in. Can't say how, but we were getting money in legally. And we were moving it through a clinic. We would have women and children of the family members go to the clinic for a doctor's appointment because we knew the Taliban wouldn't mess with the women and children or their medications. So instead of giving pills, they would give vials with Afghanis in it. And when I say it's movie-like, I mean, you don't get any more, but it was that cat. It's that cat and mouse with the Afghanis.
Wow.
Or with the Taliban, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I can pull up, I'm still in message chats with people who are getting notices from the Afghani police daily to show up and basically be beheaded. That you just hide the ball, find the ball type situation.
Are you at liberty to discuss how many souls you rescued from there?
I don't know the exact number. I know we're over 2,500. And like I said, there's still about 6,000 that we are working with. We pulled a bunch of Americans out, and obviously there's a bunch of other groups doing the same thing too. So I do know that the number of Americans that were left over there was extremely understated.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we've gotten almost all of the Americans out. And now it's really working for the high value. We've been working on getting the women's rugby team out, the women's soccer team out, because they're targeting those folks because they're completely against their vision of their religion and their rule of law. So we really focus on getting those high value, opportunity targets that we know the Taliban's going to go after. And there's still a few over there, and those are the ones that we're still pushing. But the State Department in the U.S. has all but shut it down in a lot of cases. I mean, at one point it was, okay, get the Americans out, but then we get an aircraft in and they won't give it dip clearance. Or then they're requiring American passport holders to fill out repatriation paperwork. Well, what repatriation paperwork are you filling out? You're a passport holder. That's your, the government and the administration left those people there to die.
Just don't understand. I just don't understand how that was allowed to happen.
Yeah. And they went after us. They went after organizations like ours.
Like Glenn Beck, he was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And going through the same ridiculous red tape that was imposed by the administration.
Yeah. Our money got tied up. The FBI hit us, had some investigations. We had to get lawyers involved. Fortunately, it was resolved pretty quick, but there were, some feathers ruffled, to say the least.
Yeah, yeah. God bless you and all those that did literally the Lord's work and did what our government completely abdicated. So I appreciate I'm grateful as an American. So thank you, sir.
And I will say, a lot of it too goes out to thank the people who gave money. I've got some foundations. The Laughlin Foundation has given a huge amount of money. There's other organizations. I just say that one in particular because I worked with them personally. And I mean, there's a lot of organizations out there and individuals who have given hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, their own money, company money to get it done and get the football across the line. And, they deserve as much thanks as those who organized it and the people who were pulling them out. So, that's the one part that most people overlook is how you do it. Right. But you can't do it without money. And, the supporters are a big deal too.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were a kid, you thought that when you grew up to be an adult, you were going to be a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So I mean, you ended up in the military, but at what point did you decide, I don't want to do that?
The military, it wasn't a foregone conclusion for me. Mm-hmm. And once I finally got it, for me, it was a calling at 9/11.
I gotcha.
Strictly it. And I enlisted. I could have gone as an officer. I didn't. I enlisted.
Okay.
When I finally got deep down into it and really got into the inner workings of the fighter community,
I can't imagine.
and I was like, as cool of a job as it looked.
Yeah.
Man, that is the most boring aviation job on Earth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You just sit around waiting, I guess, huh?
No, those guys plan for hours and hours and hours and hours, go out and fly for 3 hours, come back and then debrief for hours and hours and hours and hours. I mean, they debrief on everything from angle to radio calls to, it's impressive.
Yeah.
But once I finally got stuck into it, I decided that I was going to go the helicopter route.
Okay, because, correct me if I'm wrong, as you described it there, it almost seems like the fighter pilots are the CPAs of the armed forces.
They are.
I've never heard it.
They are. They are the Rain Men of the armed forces.
Yes, yeah, okay.
I mean, it's amazing what they can do. And obviously, I worked with two different types of F-15s, mostly the E models and the C models.
Okay.
The E models, the Strike Eagles, those guys, they briefed and briefed. They had a live mission. The C models, those guys, they were a lot of fun to work with. The one live mission we got to do was in NATO in 2006, I believe. We did a NATO mission out of Denmark, flying over Latvia for the G8 summits, keeping the Belarusians and the Russians at bay. And those guys were, they come in, brief an hour, fly, and then debrief an hour, and they were done. Their day was done because there's not really an air-to-air war anymore. But they still had to, you got to train air superiority. So they'd fly a ton. But I realized in my deployments that the helicopter world was where it was at.
Okay.
And put in a package to transfer over to the Army. Found out my last tour in Afghanistan that I got accepted. And when I got back to my home duty station, I had found out that they had denied my orders. And that's when I got out of the military.
Oh, boy, I bet.
Yep. We were in a short, a critical staffed field. And when they told me, I was like, all right, well, consider this my notice. I'm not re-upping. I'm done. And that's when I popped smoke and got out about 7 months later.
I don't blame you. And I interrupted you. You shifted your focus to helicopters.
Yeah.
Then okay.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever flown in a helicopter?
Have I ever flown? You know what? If I did, it was like straight up and straight down, like at a fair. You know what I mean? And so nothing fun.
Most of my helicopter time is come in combat, and when you are 150 feet, 100 feet off the ground, just screaming at the treetops. And you're working both feet, both hands, on a helicopter. It's, it just became more of an exciting,
I bet,
obviously the speed and the drive of the fighters is cool and the maneuverability, but basically skipping your butt off the ground at, 150, 200 miles an hour, and more of a mission, I guess, in my eyes. Up close and personal.
You have to get a license to be a helicopter pilot, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. How much could I get just a secondhand helicopter for if I wanted to learn?
You're probably looking at 100,000.
Oh, okay. Well, then
if not more.
Put that dream to bed.
The little ones that you see that fly up, take the tour of the city, and come back, they're probably 150 to 200,000 for the small bots. All
right. So you list your mom as having the biggest impact on your life.
Yep.
How so?
It was just her and I. My dad died when I was before my second birthday.
Oh, bro, I had no idea.
Yeah. And she was tough. She was a tough woman. Itty bitty thing, but hard as nails.
Yeah.
Stellar athlete in her day, was a world-class snow skier.
And a good hunter from the bathroom window.
Yep, good hunter. And just always driven. There was no gray area, so to speak. I definitely knew if I was stepping out of line.
Right.
And I knew there was consequences.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I appreciate, as a teenager, I was, I rebelled and I was against it, but I look back now and I appreciate it because without the lessons, I wouldn't be the man I am today, and wouldn't have had the kind of bedrock that was built, especially being a new father. And, she was not the epitome of today's parents where they're the friends before the parents.
Right.
She was the parent before the friend. So.
Well, the world needs more parents like that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
All right. So you are married to Erica.
Yep.
When and where did you guys meet?
We met February of 2019 in Newport Beach, California.
Okay.
I was living behind the red curtain of California for a couple of years.
Yeah.
We met out there. About a year and a half later, when the shutdowns and COVID craziness.
You're like, well, we got nothing better to do. Let's get married.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We had gotten engaged about 10 months after we met, 11 months after we met.
Uh-huh.
And then COVID hit. We were going to get married in California, and then obviously California went crazy. And then we decided, why are we here?
Yeah.
I'm working in Venice Beach, LA. It's crazy. It's taken me 2.5 hours both ways to work. So 5 hours a day in a car
Oh, no.
to go 20 miles.
No way to live.
No. And COVID hit. I got thrown out of my office. The office got locked down because I was in my office, the only one. And middle of the night, she rolled over and said, let's move to Dallas.
All right.
And
Connections here or just...
one of my good military buddies is a Johnson County lawyer just south of Fort Worth.
Okay.
So, I'd always said, one day I'm going to end up in Texas, and it just played out.
Why not now?
Yeah,
Very
why not
cool.
now?
You have 2 kids. Well, full disclosure, we're recording this, and you have one son who is just at a year old and another one on the way who, by the time this thing posts, you'll probably be a dad 2 times over.
Yep.
Greatest names for kids. Please tell the audience your 2 sons' names.
So, son number 1 is Tavish Fife, and son number 2 is going to be Lachlan Strath.
That's awesome, dude. These guys,
yeah,
they're going to be tough kids.
Well, we stuck. I've got a very traditional Scottish name. My whole family's from Scotland. My wife's family's from Scotland. So we wanted to do something a little different, not the traditional, the Bodies and the hipster names. And we went with very strong Scottish names, but we took the middle name a step a little bit different. So part of our family is from Fife, which is a region of Scotland.
Okay.
So Tavish Fife. And then most of my family is from Glasgow, which is in Strathclyde, County Strathclyde.
I love how deep these names are. It's so cool.
So we wanted to really do a tie-in of the regionality and then like a good traditional strong name.
Because if nothing else, they will always know where their family history is from geographically just by referencing their names.
Yeah.
I love that.
Exactly.
I think that is so cool. What I'm doing right now is I'm Googling and I'm trying to figure out how tall is a Rhodesian Ridgeback? Your dog?
So mine's a mix. She's probably just above my knee.
Oh, okay.
So she's probably
all right.
30 inches.
Why was I thinking that these were really, really
They're
gigantic
big.
dogs?
The males average the females average between 60 and 80. The males average between 80 and 120.
Uh-huh.
And the males are quite tall, mid-thigh, a big dog. Darla now is 65 pounds, not quite a year old, and she's, probably right to my knee, maybe just a little above. So, but they're a great breed of dog.
Yeah. I've seen, when I got your email, I was looking up videos of them, and they just seem like fun.
They are.
Like almost like, I don't know, having an extra kid, right? But obviously a big extra kid.
Exactly. And that's, at times I thought Erica was going to murder me when we got the dog.
Oh, no.
Because it was having a 3-month-old puppy and a 3-month-old baby.
Ooh.
And I was traveling and back and forth.
Oh.
There was times that I thought
Darla's got it together though, right?
Yeah, she does now.
Okay, good.
She does now.
Seriously, I'm with you. I understand. I mean, when you have the puppy, there's that break-in period, and we had that with our dog. In fact, we didn't adopt him until he was probably, because they found him on the street, so he was probably about 6 months old or so, and he was a menace. I had just planted these little saplings all around the yard. All of them pulled out chew toys. We had a recliner on the back patio because we're white trash, and even more so after Tanner got a hold of it and just destroyed it. He tried to dig under the fence. I mean, right? Okay, but it's just like parenting. if you take the time
Yep.
and you discipline them and you correct them and show them what's right and what's wrong, my gosh, he is the greatest animal by far that I've ever been the owner of. And I'm going to just go ahead and brag and say that I've ever met. But, just it's amazing the transformation you can make in a dog, especially, to go from destroyer of things to just guardian and listens to everything you say just like that.
Yeah. I don't think this one will be a guardian. This dog has, unfortunately, she has 0 bite in her, which is hilarious.
Well, that's what the Glock's for.
Yeah, exactly. or the 12 gauge or buckshot. But it's funny. We've got her broke of almost all her bad habits. Mm-hmm. The one thing I've not been able to break her of, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. We built our house almost a year ago to the day here in Texas, and we've got a tree in our backyard. Well, all the lower branches are now gone, and they're gone as high as she could jump because she would hang from the branch until she broke it off.
She sets goals.
Yeah, she's an overachiever. But now there's no branches for her to break off because they're too high.
Oh, no. Well, please tell me before you lost the last branch, you got video or pictures of this.
No, well,
you never caught her?
Never caught her.
Oh, no.
Not with a camera, but there's still evidence on the tree where the bark is gone and the sapling branches are broke off.
That is awesome. She sounds like a character, man. You currently play ice hockey, which we need to talk about. But the reason you play ice hockey now is because you needed to transition to a different sport after you played 35 years of rugby.
Yeah.
That's got to do wonders for the body.
Yeah. It's it was time.
Yeah.
Broken leg, broken noses, some other injuries. Great sport. The camaraderie. And I tell you, I didn't get as injured as much playing rugby as I did football.
Everyone says this.
It's more controlled.
Yeah. And you feel invincible with the pads and the helmet, right?
Exactly. And you take those away, you start to realize what your body can and can't do real quick.
Uh-huh.
Especially with your head.
Yes.
I needed something. I was living in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and had never put skates on my feet before in my life. And everybody's like, you should come out and play hockey with us.
Oh, no.
So my very first hockey game was the very first time I ever skated.
What?
Yeah. I looked like a baby giraffe trying to walk. So
how long did it take you before you felt confident out there?
About a year.
And they were cool with having you out there. No offense, but it's like, okay, here's the guy who can't skate.
I wasn't the only one.
Oh, wow. They just needed bodies, huh?
Well, and it was great because they're obviously playing different levels of leagues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was a lower level league that had a couple of good players and then kind of medium and then people like myself, like I said, who looked like baby giraffes trying to walk.
Yeah.
So
how many times did you use the boards to stop you?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
So how are you at skating now?
A lot better.
Okay.
When
did this start, this ice hockey stuff?
What year are we in? 2022, 2017. So.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's,
good for you, man.
Very, very similar to rugby, great camaraderie. I travel now with hockey, go to different tournaments. I've played.
That's cool, man.
Went out in February, played in a tournament out in Anaheim in February as well. January, February, went up and played in a disabled vets tournament up in St. Louis, which had a bunch of different disabled vet teams from all over the country come in. So it was it's been a great transition. I still get the competitiveness, I still get a bit of the physicality, and obviously the fitness and the camaraderie.
That's cool that you had a place to learn on the fly.
Yeah.
As opposed to just, I'll learn, during open skate and hope that, I can get on with a team somehow. But that's really cool that you had that availability there.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay. This is an impossible question. But if you could keep 5 possessions, what would they be? Well, you managed to answer it. I appreciate this. And people go different ways on this. Some people go sentimental. And some people go like, okay, am I trying to survive? I'm on a deserted island. And I've never specified this. So I love how you went very practical here with your truck, a tent, a gun, your dog, and ammunition. I mean, you're ready for Well, I was about to say you're ready for Armageddon. Hell no, you're ready for what's just a normal day in 2022, it sounds like.
Yeah, you never know what's going to pop up next.
Yeah. No, that's good. So, Red Dirt Country, I'm familiar with that. I never really listened to it, but how many different versions of country music would you say there probably are?
God. Nowadays, I mean, you got your old school, your Hank Williams.
Yeah.
You kind of got your our age, the 80s, 90s, your kind of ballad country, the Garth Brooks.
Okay, yeah. And that's my gateway into country, really.
Mine too. And, then you got what today I don't even consider it country. It's just pop music.
Sure.
And then for me, I like the Red Dirt Country because it's kind of more Southern rock. It's got a little bit of it's a storytelling, a folky, kind of more rough around the edges type.
All right, so if there's hope for someone like me that isn't a big country music fan, but I can dabble here and there, what's a Red Dirt Country artist that you think I need to be familiar with, I should try out?
Cody Jinks.
Okay.
Local Fort Worth boy.
Okay. Write it down. Check it out.
And he's a quite interesting backstory because he started as a metal artist.
What? How do you spell his name?
Cody, Cody, Jinks.
Okay, cool. Oh, wow. He used to be metal?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to know how he transitioned. Maybe I'll get him behind this microphone.
Aaron Lewis. He's the lead singer from Stained.
Okay. I got it. Yes, somebody's told me about him. Okay, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Is he having as much success in country as he did with Stained?
I think so.
Okay.
He's not, he doesn't release a ton of albums. It's a song here, a song there, but I know when he comes down here to Billy Bob's, you can't get a ticket.
Wow.
So,
okay.
And I mean, that's a huge venue for kind of country music all around. So, trying to get a ticket to one of his shows is near impossible.
The last book you read, The Dichotomy of Leadership. Sell me on that book.
Man, you got to kind of tie all their books together.
Okay.
And it's just really taking charge, and knowing who you are as a leader, your faults, and, your strengths and your opportunities. Mm-hmm. But also playing to the strengths and the opportunities of those around you and building your team off of that. You can put 10 people in a room that have the same strengths, but if you have the same weaknesses, you're dead in the water. So you have to build your team with what you need as far as strengths to cover your weaknesses.
Is that basically what you're embarking on right now? In stepping out and starting your own thing? In a way, that's kind of where I've always taken my leader. I know very well where my weaknesses are, that, no matter how hard I work on them, they're still my weaknesses. Right. And that's how I've always hired. Andy, always hire people better than you. So, but mine was more of my new venture, my new step out has been more of, instead of doing it the same old over and over again, let's take the good from the industry and keep going with it, but let's improve on what the industry continues to do poorly. And there's a lot. I mean, the vacation rental, short-term management, property management, there's a lot of things that we continue to do poorly that are very easy fixes, but nobody just jumps on it. So my goal is to branch out, do some property investment, and tie it into some management opportunities as well, kind of nationwide. How would people find what it is that you do? Like, where would people cross paths with what you do? So a lot of it is, the biggest point to, and what people know it as now is they point to a listing. They're like, oh, you do Airbnbs. And that's what short-term rentals are. All Airbnb is a listing site. That's it. You just list. It's just a listing site. There's a whole layer of smoke and mirrors behind it. Getting the houses set up, getting the people into the homes, the marketing, the customer service, the guest retention, owner retention, real estate development, things like that fall in behind that. But the big ones, Verbo,
Vacasa now has come in and bought just about everybody in the industry, but they still do it the wrong way. They came out and went public a few months ago and had a $4 billion valuation and have never made a dime. Their biggest enemy is themselves because they just go in and buy with no intent to retain. So yeah, you can grow if you keep buying, and lose at the same time. But where I want to do it, I want to start, obviously I'm starting grassroots, grow one market, move into the next, and really focus on the retention and really giving people not necessarily a new opportunity to travel, but a lasting memory and potential for further travel, which, a lot of people spend all their money to make one trip. I don't want that. Yeah. I want people to make money, but I also want I want to hit a group too that kind of encompasses both. I want to hit the upper echelon of travel, but I also want to get the moms and pops and the small families that, maybe only make $100,000 a year combined, but I still want to be able to send them on vacation and host their vacations at a reasonable cost, where it doesn't put them out and it doesn't put the owner of the property out as well, where there's a good middle ground, and be able to take care of them on both sides.
That's great, dude.
You always treat the guests equally, but equally may be different based on what they rent. So, I want them to have an equal experience based on what they're looking for.
Understood. Your favorite book is The Places in Between by Rory Stewart. What is that about?
It's kind of a threefold story. So the book itself, Rory Stewart the guy's an enigma of a man. He's a small Scotsman who grew up as kind of a blue blood, I guess. Father was a diplomat and mother was an educator. So he was very privileged individual growing up. With that being said, when the war in Iraq kicked off, he was walking the Silk Route. And he was detained in Iran when the war kicked off, and they finally let him go. But basically every day along his journey through through Afghanistan, through the Central Route, which is where all the fighting, Taliban, everybody's like, you're going to die tomorrow. You're going to die tomorrow. And he made it all the way through Kabul, through into Pakistan, through the Khyber Pass. And that's kind of where the story ends. But he picks it up in a second book, completely different, called The Prince of Tides. Well, obviously we know the British were big allies to ours in Iraq. Well, he was the provincial governor in Iraq for the Brits. And the Prince of Marshes is how he got in with the one person who he had to get in with down in I think it was Balad region. I could be wrong, where the Brits had control to stop the fighting. And that's where he did it. And he made the relationships and was able to draw this individual out of the marshes and ended the fighting in that region. So the two books combined really paint a story of it's a very interesting gentleman. And he's just this little tiny Scotsman. So yeah, and the only reason I found it, I was looking for a book about Afghanistan before I went over, and that popped up, and I think I read it in a day. So
good stuff, huh?
Yeah.
So let's stay over there and visit the most scared that you've ever been, which is Operation Rock Avalanche in Afghanistan.
Yep.
Tell us what happened, man.
That was there were some planning issues from the get-go that were really kind of set the mission up. The mission was planned to be set up for success. The leadership of the mission, egos got in the way and produced it for failure. Prime example for what I do, weather. We're briefed in, we brief everything from illumination, if you're flying in under night vision goggles, to wind pattern, wind direction and speed. Well, with a helicopter, that makes a world of difference. If you're downwind of a helicopter, you're going to hear it from miles away. And if you fly into illumination, you'll white out the pilots. They can't see because the moon is too bright into the night vision goggles.
Oh, boy.
So
things that people like me never even think about.
Exactly. And you don't think about it unless you're in that situation and it's part of what you do. It just becomes second nature. Well, I'm briefing and I tell the aviation lead, hey, we need to change. We need to come in from this direction. Illumination's here and wind direction is here. Well, the colonel's exact words to me were, you worry about forecasting the weather, I'll worry about directing the mission. Well, at that point, I was also going in on the mission. So I briefed and then went in on the helicopters to get out and support the infantry. We knew before we hit the ground that they knew we were there and that we were coming, because the ICOM chatter, which is, we can hear them going back and forth on their cell phones with our technologies. But it got so bad day one, day two, that they were popping up in closer distance than you and I are sitting apart in this room and shooting our guys at point blank range. Oh. They knew exactly where we were. Sal Giunta earned a Medal of Honor out of it. We ended up finishing the mission and walking our way out, but it was at a pretty substantial loss. And a couple of CNN reporters got thrown out. They, go figure, changed what the mission scope was and made it look a lot different than what it was on news, and they were asked to leave the theater. But it was rough. I mean, they were popping up, shooting guys, and then trying to drag the bodies out and steal the equipment. And there was guys that they dragged that we couldn't get.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so that to me is my stick out mission, because there was minor changes that could have been made.
Right.
Not washing out the we almost had one helicopter. The first helicopter flew and almost flew into the side of the mountain because he whited out. And then by that point, we had so many helicopters in the air coming from the wrong direction. I mean, they knew we were coming. Mm-hmm. So.
God. And you list combat as one of the biggest turning points in your life, which I can't imagine. And the other being fatherhood, which obviously is a massive life changer. Where do you see this chaotic world of madness that we are leaving behind for our children? Where do you see things ending up?
You know, if we continue on the trajectory we're on, we are back in 1920s, 1930s, kind of another great reset. I hate to use that term,
yeah.
But when you look at where we are as a society, people have been fat and happy and everything's been given. And, you know, weak men make for hard times, hard men make for good times. Mm-hmm. And it's around the world. It's not just the United States, you know, and it's not just one party. It's both parties here and, you know, the different parties around the world. We have become weak as humans, and those who have remained strong are taking control. And the chaos, you know, I pray it doesn't happen, but we're on the doorstep of either somebody stepping in or the alliance is building for something greater. And my fear is if we get into another world war, it doesn't come out the way the past two did. And our focus as a military, sadly, isn't on the mission anymore. We've seen that play out. It's about whatever the political flavor of the month is to get funding and to keep people happy, where that's not what the other countries are focusing on.
Yeah.
You know, they're focusing on the fight and the win at any cost. And we aren't.
Yeah.
I think if we get that under control, we set ourselves up for a better future for the youth. If we don't get it under control and start putting some of the right people in the right places, we're in trouble. Yeah. And we're in trouble as a whole, not just, you know, us speaking about the United States. I think the world is in trouble as a whole. Yeah. Because the alliances are starting to form and the militaries are starting to thunder up, and there's going to be a reset. Is it a peaceful reset or not? That's right now is the question.
Right. Let's switch gears back to rugby real quick. You played professional rugby.
I did.
So was that in Australia?
I did a little bit in Australia and most of my time in England.
Okay. So is there an Ian Patterson rugby trading card out there somewhere?
No.
They don't make those for rugby?
No.
What's up with that?
We didn't even make enough money to hardly get by.
All right, had to ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we still worked other jobs. I was in the military, and I'd only get released from military service if I got called into the A side. So I would work in the military, show up to practice. If I got called into the A side, they'd give me a week off to go train and do whatever I needed to do. As soon as I got dropped from the A side, I was right back into the office in the military.
All right. I'm all over the map here because earlier when you got here, we were walking down to get some water. By the way, you need another water?
I'm good.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool. So we were walking down there to get you a bottle of water, and we were talking about the travel industry and kind of what you do. Tell us a story about trying to rent out Walt Disney's place in...
So at the time I was working for Wyndham Vacation Rentals, and I was running a company in Palm Springs, California called Vacation Palm Springs, and we had a home that used to be the vacation home of Walt Disney himself.
So he owned it or he rented it?
No, he owned it.
He owned it.
He built the house. He owned the house, and the Disney family sold it to a private family.
Okay.
Well, the other family wanted to turn it over. It was an investment property. They wanted to bring it on to our rental program. And for months, we tried everything that we could to get it onto the rental program. But it was one fight against another with the Disney Corporation, because Walt, throughout the house, had drawn Mickey Mouse looking over baseboards, depictions of Disney characters all in the closets and on walls.
This is like history.
It is. And it was all signed by Walt. And we had come up with a way, instead of ripping the sheetrock out and, preserving it, of putting, nice glass covers and preserving the art so people couldn't damage it. But it just became a fight with Disney, even though technically they owned the rights because they owned the home. Marketing it and presenting it out there, because it was still called the Walt Disney home, because it's so
I would love to stay at a place where I could take pictures in front of Mickey Mouse drawings on the wall. I mean, that would have been a draw in of itself.
Exactly. It would have been a huge game changer.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a lot of those houses, they were still named after their celebrity owners.
Yeah, okay,
The Gene Autry home.
Oh, nice.
The Firestone estate. A lot of our homes, they still maintain who the original owner of the home was.
So whatever happened to that house then?
We couldn't work with it, unfortunately. We tried, we did everything we could, but the forces that be at Disney, it was going to be a fight for the owners, and they just decided, you know what, it's not worth it.
Sure. Okay. So good or bad, any stories with celebrities that you've crossed paths with that you'd care to share here? Because I know you've crossed paths with a lot of celebrities.
Probably my favorite one was Wiz Khalifa.
Oh, the rapper guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Uh-huh.
Who I had no idea who he was.
Right. I didn't either the first time I heard his name.
So I'm weeks into California. Coachella is about to kick off, and Airbnb puts him into one of the houses, and we get a photographer that shows up. Well, in that part of the country, they have very strict rules and regulations about professional photography, especially if you're a celebrity. That house in particular, if you wanted to shoot it for photography, the fee was $90,000 to the owner to shoot the house.
What?
Yeah.
California is gone.
Well, it was, because it was a very particular home. So you were getting the architecture of the home. It was the Firestone estate.
Got it. Oh, okay.
So, but the city also took a piece of it as well. So the Airbnb rented the home for him. That was their donation, I guess, to the Coachella, and to get their name out there, their marketing. They put Wiz Khalifa up in his house. Well, we wouldn't let the photographer in. So I have to step back. At the time I was bodybuilding.
Oh, no.
I had just moved from the mountains of Colorado weeks earlier. So I show up at the house in jeans, cowboy boots, a cowboy hat, looking like I'm straight off the Western Range. And I have no idea who this gentleman is.
Okay.
So I don't know they just gave me a little bit of the situation. I get there and there's security everywhere and management. And we're sitting at the table out by the pool, and this kid is just up and down one side of me, and I'm trying to explain the situation. And he's probably 6 foot. He's tall, but at the time he was probably 125 pounds soaking wet. I was about 260. And it was me, his manager, and his security, and whoever else, his family, and all that around the pool. And he jumped up, and all of a sudden goes, I ought to just kick your ass. I said, sir, I don't know who you are, and you don't know who I am. I said, but in a past life, I could make you disappear and your family won't know you're gone. I said, so you can either follow the rules, and do it the right way, or you can go back to Los Angeles and drive the 3 to 4 hours that it's going to take you to hit your set. I don't care, but you're not going to do it this way. And his manager kind of stopped and calmed him down a little bit. And they're like, are we clear, or are we going to have to move this along? And he settled down, and we were leaving, and the manager's like, so what'd you used to do for a living? And I was like, I used to be in the military and worked with some guys. And he goes, oh, but then we turned around, and this house was about $250,000 a week to rent.
Whoa. And
they ended up staying almost 12 hours past. So I think we got another day out of them. But on the flip side, once again, I get a call. They're like, hey, we need to do a handoff, an in-person handoff to this guest. And it was maybe the next day or the same day. They're like, and it's at PGA West out in La Quinta, big, beautiful golf cars, big, beautiful homes. And it was Lady Gaga. And really didn't know who she was. If I saw her walking by her, would have no idea who she was.
Right.
And go over to the house, do a handoff, super, super friendly, really nice.
Cool.
And ended up having to have one of my managers come pick me up because we had a few too many bottles of wine sitting on the couch. So
that's funny.
Yeah, so I've had a couple of good stories, but for the most part, the minimal, I've had minimal interaction, thankfully. Ricky Gervais had a funny interaction with Ricky Gervais in a bar in England just after I had gotten back from Iraq the first time, and it was kind of a funny interaction with him. Ended up being a good guy, and everything you expect Ricky Gervais to be.
Seems like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
it's good to hear, man.
Yeah.
If you could go back in history, you'd like to meet William Wallace.
Once again, a play on my Scottish history.
How accurate is the Mel Gibson movie? Braveheart.
Not fully accurate. It was more, they say Robert the Bruce that led the fight. He was a fringe fighter.
Yeah.
That, it was more the skirmishes. He did lead some big battles. But, I mean, the ultimate, stick it to the big military type situation. So, and just the drive. And I study a lot of being Scottish, a lot of Scottish history. And our Scottish clan has ties to his Scottish clan, and there's relationships down the line.
Oh, cool.
So to me, I just think that portion of history, because it was so hard and such a tough time.
I can't imagine living in another era like that.
No, and every man back there was hard, but to be so hard that centuries later you're still remembering.
Right. Oh, yeah. Good point. Very good point.
So, and what, like, the drive and the mentality back then, which we don't have today.
Yeah. Well, sounds like we may get a taste of it soon, huh?
Yeah. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Yeah, that's okay. You list losing your first executive job as your most embarrassing moment. How so?
It's a hard pill to swallow. You've worked so hard to get to that point. And at that point, I had never had like true failure. And even though I did some great things, it really made me step outside of my own skin and see, where do I need to make major improvements? And the business was well, and there were some things that were going well, but I have a tendency to really dig my heels in for what I feel is right. And what's right now may not be right in the long run. And it cost me. And, I'd I'd been nominated for Denver Times CEO of the Year in Colorado the same year.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it was a big, it was a gut check. Huh. And then getting a notice that, hey, we're not retaining you for, the coming year from the board was tough.
Yeah.
And I really had to step back and, look. And, what it boiled down to is I protected my people and I protected some locals, from a tax hike in Steamboat Springs. But did I really protect them because like the mountain was fighting against me because I wouldn't go along with the mountain's narrative of raising the taxes to bring more flights in and things like that. And maybe it would have worked, in the long run, but
you would have maybe done things.
Yeah, maybe it would have made a couple of different relationship calls on conversations and maybe not have been so steadfast in not raising taxes on, the thing that people don't realize. Yeah, Steamboat, Aspen, Vail, they're beautiful places. But the majority of the people that work there are making $12 to $15 an hour. Guys our age live in 4 to 5 guys in a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment, if not more. And that's no way to live.
Yeah.
And then there were 18 tax initiatives on the ballot for the town that year. 18 for a town of 10,000 people.
Wow.
You just can't do that to people.
Yeah.
And a few other decisions I would have made. I lost a big marquee property, which was going before I took over, but it fell out on my watch. So you lose a house that brings in $500,000 plus a year. Yeah. So it made me collect my thoughts, sit back and, 1, hiring practices, 2, decision-making, and 3, direction and narrative, as a senior leader of an organization.
Wow. Now, I'm with you on a regret here, not being frugal. I can totally identify with that, I think, that mindset of not being frugal enough.
Yeah. I wish in the younger years I'd have saved more.
Me too.
Versus, and I'm finally, now that I've got a family, like, all right, I got to do this. Instead of going, you know what? Let's go here. Let's go there. I've got the money. Can't die with it.
Yeah.
Let's go. And I wish I would have been a little bit more restrained prior to having a family.
Yeah.
But
gotcha.
I've got the experiences. I won't be the old guy sitting on the porch. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, but you didn't.
Okay.
So I do
trade-offs.
have that. Yeah.
Life is just a series of trade-offs.
Exactly.
And let's talk about your bucket list, which I think this is just such a great goal, is you want to be able to play a sport with both of your boys when they're of age. That's great, man. Are you talking about something as simple as basketball in the driveway, or are you talking about maybe the 3 of you guys all on the same hockey team?
That's exactly it. Being on the same, on the ice together.
Yeah.
Or cool. If they decide to play rugby or something like that. I had a good friend of mine, like family to me in England, a guy named Noel Woodgate. We were playing at a club called Shelford Rugby Club in Cambridge, England. It was my main club that I played with over there. And when he got to play with his son, Will, at the senior level, Noah was in his 50s, Will was 17, 18. What a great, especially at such a tough sport, to be able to take the field with your kid.
Yeah.
Mid-50s, taking the field with your 18-year-old kid at the same time.
Cool, man.
I'll be probably in my 60s, but...
Well, you take care of yourself, so you'll still be around. That's cool, man.
Yeah, so I think that's it's a huge thing to be able to pass. I always tell my wife, I was like, I'll never let the kids win until they can beat me. So... That's
exactly how I was. I mean, just in the driveway playing street hockey, know? It's like, I'm not letting you score on me. Yep. And if you do score on me, then you can have dessert tonight after supper. If you don't, then you get to watch me eat all y'all's dessert.
Exactly.
That's how I do it. Don't give the kids anything.
Yeah.
Make them earn it.
Let them earn it.
Yes. So your favorite comfort food is chicken pot pie. I got to say, it's either scorching hot or ice cold. There's no happy medium with me. I love chicken pot pie in theory, but, I just never seem to try to consume it at the right temperature, man.
Yep. Yeah. So funny.
So it's not just me.
No. So funny story. Back to England. I'm in the military. I'm close to getting out. I've probably got a few months left in. And, the pies, the meat pies in the UK are just, it's what they do.
Yeah.
So I buy one from the baker. I put it in my oven, and I got in trouble for it. You're going to laugh when I tell you this. I pull it out of the oven, and the pan on the bottom broke, and the scorching hot chicken pot pie spilled over my foot.
No.
And I was cooking with flip-flops on.
Oh, no. I will not laugh at this because this is exactly the kind of stuff I do to myself.
No, it's funny. It gets funnier.
Oh, no.
So I go to the hospital because I have like second and third degree burns between my toes from chicken pot pie.
Oh.
I get a letter of reprimand for cooking without shoes on in my own home. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like, well, you damaged a duty, so you've basically taken yourself out of duty. And I was like, fair enough.
Oh my gosh. Do you have that letter of reprimand, and does it get specific with the injury and what happened and stuff?
I may be able to pull it up.
That needs to be framed.
If
it says burns in your toes or what.
Yeah. No, it was pretty funny though. And so I had to wear a flip-flop and a boot to work for about 3 weeks until the wound sealed.
I love this. Currently in your Amazon cart, weightlifting supplements. I don't doubt that. I got a question. What's your bench press? What can you do there?
Oh God, I don't know. I
don't even look. I just say throw another weight on there.
I don't think I have done a lift for max in a decade.
Oh wow.
I go in, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I haven't done flat bench like your normal traditional. But I train mostly with incline barbell. If I do, that would be the closest thing.
Okay.
And I usually do sets of 10 to 15 with 275 pounds.
I mean, it sounds like you could just say, hey, surprise me. Just put something on there and, whatever.
I would probably be in the 350 range if I'm lucky.
You're a big user of Twitter.
Yep.
I don't know if you can identify with this, but I probably spend way too much time on Twitter. It's great for show prep for my day job, Pat Gray Unleashed on the Blaze. But, man, that place is such a cesspool. But it's like, I can't put it down, man.
It is. It's like watching a car wreck, Yeah. You try to look away, but you can't.
I know.
And I try, I do get serious, obviously, from time to time, but I try to keep it very light and jovial with garbage posts as well.
Sure.
And it is the most frustrating yet one of the most rewarding sites too, because you meet great people. Right. Groups, it does get to be a bit of a sounding board at times, which is tough. And, as Americans, I think that's something we need to get away from.
Yeah.
We're too much to the right, too much to the left. There's nobody really left that wants to hear the middle anymore. And anybody who does venture into the middle gets absolutely excoriated from both sides.
Yeah. That's right.
And they say it's a loyalty issue, but it's more of a common sense issue.
Yeah. And that's the best place to find you, by the way, on social media, right? It's the only place.
It's the only place, really.
Ringo Rugger 1. Okay.
Yeah, I try to stay off of most of the other stuff.
All right. I think we've covered everything, huh? I mean, anything you could think of we need to discuss here, Ian Patterson?
I think we're good, man.
All right, man. Thanks for coming in. Ian Patterson, my guest here on At the Mic. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
It was great getting to unpack Ian's story today with you, and I'm so glad that he made the time for us. Such a great guy, and I'm just so grateful to know him. Now, next week, I'm going to sit down with a Blaze TV co-worker of mine, Michaela Hedrick. She actually writes many of the words that you hear talk host Glenn Beck read on the air. Yeah, we're going to hear about that and her story. It's going to be a good conversation a week from now. If you get a chance to subscribe to this podcast over at youtube.com/atthemic with Keith, that's youtube.com/atthemic with Keith, I would be so grateful. It's available there. Also, as you well know, it's also available when you head to atthemicshow.com. If you're able to rate the show 5 stars on Apple iTunes or Spotify, as always, we would be so grateful. We'd definitely be grateful if you would share this show with your friends and family. Well, until we meet here next time, I hope you'll go be free, and thank you for listening.
This has been At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production. Head to atthemicshow.com for archived episodes, sponsor information, and ways to connect.